Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at a book by Independence Games, Port of Entry for Clement Sector 3rd edition. This is kind of the last word you're going to need on ports in your favorite science fiction role-playing game. It's always a beautiful book by Independence Games. We're going to take a look at it and what this gives you inside. Also, just quick reminder, subscribers, come on in. Everybody subscribe. Thank you. Everybody who hasn't, let's keep the channel growing. I like doing these videos. I hope you like watching them. If you do, please like and subscribe. Also, I've got a Patreon going. If you can help out there, I have rewards for it. So please take a look at that. But now back to the important stuff today. Port of Entry for Clement Sector 3rd edition by Independence Games. Today on page 121. Port of Entry, Starports in Clement Sector by Independence Games. First thing I want to say is thank you to the folks at Independence Games for sending this copy my way for me to take a look at. Next thing I want to say is I really enjoyed reading this book. There is a lot of good stuff in here. Now, there have been plenty of books over the years that deal with space stations and starports in science fiction role-playing. This one goes into a nice depth that I have never found before. I'm going to explain that as I go. So here we go. It's about 198 pages, so you're definitely getting your money's worth out of this guy. The authors are John Watts, Michael Johnson, and Tony Hicks. I'm not really familiar with Mr. Johnson or Mr. Hicks. I know John Watts writes a really good book. So I'm pretty excited about this. We have an Ian Stead cover plus some interior art. I love Ian Stead. Just some really good stuff here. So I'm not going to be naming all the artists. I apologize if you're an artist in this book. I love your artwork in this book. It's very well done, but I really can't name everybody. Okay, here we go. Some great artwork there. And as always, with an Independence Games book, a massive table of contents. I like that. I can find stuff. I don't have to be hunting around. I like an index too, but I like a table of contents that may as well be an index. Like that artwork. Okay, we start off with Starport Types. We get the high port, also referred to as the up port. This is the one that's out in space or in orbit. Generally in orbit, although it can be a deeper space situation, depending on what you're trying to do as far as how far into jump shadow you have to fly and things like that. That's a little different than in other 2-6 role-playing games. In Independence Games, here you have to find zim points to come in and out. So the convenience of that is you can get to a zim point and you can plunk a station right near it. Then we go to downports. Downports are the ones that are on the surface of the planetary body. Either a moon or a planet, whatever it's on, that's where you're actually down on the surface. Not necessarily open to the air, but usually it will be. And then you get starport classes and ratings. And these are judged by the Captain's Guild. I'm going to take a look at the Captain's Guild in another video. I like this concept. So the Captain's Guild rates the starports. The starport, or any type of port, starport or downport. And you start with X-class ports, which is just basically a landing spot. E-class ports that might have some traffic control, that kind of thing. D-class ports, a few more amenities, maybe some refueling. C-class port, definitely starting to get up there into a more finished starport. B-class ports, you're getting up into the higher end, and then of course the A-class ports, which is the higher end. So all the services and amenities will be looked at in just a moment. And then the ratings are assigned by the captains. And again, I'll take a look at that in a separate video. I like that concept. So then we have starport services. First off, traffic control. Yes, you can't just fly into the starport and just grab a spot. You've got to wait your turn and park in where you're told and be in the queue and everything else. So pretty important part there. You have transponders, which are, of course, transmitter responders. Transponders, your ID as you're flying through space. Most municipalities are going to require you to have some kind of transponder, and it's usually a pretty heavy penalty for not having one or for changing one. And then starport security. This can be the guy on the ground with his hand on the pulsar, or it can be in space where they're actually keeping the space lanes clear for trade. Then you go through customs. What are customs? Customs where they're going to inspect to make sure that what you bring in the port is legal for this area. And then, of course, inspections is part of that, and policing is part of that. Policing is also just keeping the peace within the starport. You guys want to start that bar fight, that's fine, but there's going to be police to deal with. Surveillance, depending on the law level, you could be under severe scrutiny or maybe not. And then visas. Do you need a visa to be on the planet or in the starport itself? Is it restricted in some way by some type of religious dictatorship or technocracy or something like that? Or maybe you aren't allowed to come here because you're from a warring faction. Someone that this group is at war with. So we go to ship services, which is berthing, which is used for storing the starship while you're in port. You do have to pay fees on that. Sometimes it's free on the world, but in any kind of starport, unless you have a deal worked out, it's going to cost you. Landing pads. Landing pads will generally be on the world. Not impossible that they'll be on a moon or something. And then landing bays are a little bit more complete than a landing pad. Landing pad's just literally a pad to land your ship on. Landing bay will have a built-up berm, maybe some booms to hold the ship. Docking. Docking is generally referred to as something where you're still out in space. You're either docking at a base on a moon or more likely with the starship itself. And of course, docking bays. Docking bays are a combination between landing bays and docking rings. Landing bays are open spaces where the ship can just fly in. Auto control. Part of the whole landing process could be that you have to turn your ship over to auto control and they land it for you remotely. This is something that I'm a bit of a stickler on as my various characters are coming into starports. I believe auto control would be pretty much automatic. Space elevators. I love space elevators. Basically, you put a big weight up in orbit, you attach cable to it with a counterweight down on the surface. That's a very simplistic way of talking about a space elevator. Then you have an elevator that runs up and down the cable. It takes it a few days to get up and down, but it's kind of a neat primitive way to build an orbital habitat and one that connects directly with the ground. Then you have refueling. Refueling can be available starting at Class D starports where it's unrefined and then all the way up through the A. Fuel vouchers. Sometimes if you're working for a corporation, you'll get a fuel voucher. You won't have to pay for the refueling or do wilderness refueling. That's a neat idea too. Maintenance, of course, repair, refit, refurbishment, all important parts of keeping your ship in good trim. Generally, every 8 weeks or so, you're going to need to have the ship in for some kind of general maintenance. So it's good to find a port that can do that for you, especially if it's a reasonable price. Class of port C or higher can build ships of 800 tons or less. B can build ships of 2,000 tons or less. And Class A ports can build anything you want. So pretty neat. You could be at a starport that also builds ships. And then interior maintenance, also referred to as housekeeping. You can have somebody come in and clean up those sticky floors that you guys have been walking around on for the last couple of months. Boy, spacers are slobs. And then, of course, sewage and garbage disposal, depending on the type of ship. You might be storing your sewage. I don't know why you wouldn't just loose it into space. Maybe not near a planet or anything, but, space is awfully big. It's kind of just a big porta-johny. But you might need to clean it out. And then cargo. You can have corporate cargo. This would be cargo that comes in under a corporate flag. Freight handling. People that load and unload it. Maybe you're perfectly able to unload your ship, but you're on the space station. You're not allowed to do it because it's a union situation and you're not allowed to do anything. I was at a trade show years and years ago. I won't say where, but it was a union place. And I didn't know it was a union place. And I crawled under a table and plugged in something and immediately was told, oh my gosh, unplug that quickly. We have to have a certified union electrician do that or else we'll get thrown out. I crawled back under the table and unplugged it. We waited for 3 hours for the guy to plug it in for us. True story. Freight handling, warehouses, where you have to store some of your freight. Sometimes you'll have to store your freight, go do another job, and come back for the freight, depending on the situation. Maybe a connection got screwed up or something. So warehouses can be important for that. Trade departments and kiosks. This is where you're going to find your brokers, your independents, and your travel agents. These are all people that are going to help you find ways to make a profit on your ship. But of course, they want a piece of the action too. I really like this. The broker, especially the travel agents rather. Travel agents usually charge passenger 5% of the overall cost of the trip and charge the ship's captain 5% of the overall cost for arranging the deal. So I'll make 10% on the deal. So if it's a 2,000 credit trip, the travel agent's going to make 200 on it. I kind of like that. And then mail offices. Who doesn't like mail, especially in a space game? Passenger and crew services, information desks, baggage, medical. As I said, search and rescue. Everything you're going to need to deal with in a space station or a starport is here. Maybe the starport, to attract interstellar trade, has lesser laws than the downport would have, or even if the downport has relaxed laws, they are less stringent than what would be outside the downport. And that's not all that uncommon. Hospitality. You want people to come back once they've been to your place. Hospitality, you have to show it. And to do that, you have lounges, hotels. Hotels, they go into capsule hotels here. Basically, it's just like sleeping in a big MRI bed. Not something I want to try. And I'm not a claustrophobe. Hostels, economy hostels, full service hostels. A hostel is basically, they're less common in the United States than elsewhere in the world, but they are often shared sleeping area, like a common area, and shared bathroom accommodations, that kind of thing, but at a much reduced price. So you could find yourself in a room with 6 or 7 other people, maybe in a bunk bed arrangement even. Again, not real common in the United States, but absolutely around other parts of the world. Economy hotels and full service hotels, luxury hotels, they all speak for themselves. Boutiques. Maybe you want to pretend that you're a pioneer in the Old West, and somebody has a boutique hotel on a wilderness type planet, and you can go ahead and you can stay there. Just one of many. Short-term housing rental. Maybe you're going to need to be in port for a couple weeks for some major repairs. Instead of renting a hotel room, you might want to look into some short-term housing. Extended stay hotels. And then your food services, starting with vending machines, convenience stores, and concession stands. Going through food delivery, personal chefs, food vehicles, and then, of course, restaurants. These are all part of the accommodations to keep you coming back to the starport or downport whenever you get the chance. So restaurants go by different ratings, and then you have just a beer garden, buffet, casual dining, coffee houses, diners, dinner theater, family style, fast food, and fine dining. One thing I absolutely love about Clement sector, or about Independence games and the third edition, is because different groups of nationals from Earth settled a lot of these different areas, you still get a lot of that flavor of the different ethnicity that settled it. So you can get an Indian culture, you can get American cuisine, you can get British cuisine, and it'll all still be true to what it was. And it's not so far in the future that a lot of this has been lost to time. Most space games are so far in the future that a lot of that's become just watered into everything else. And you really can't have anything stand out like that. So then we have pubs, tapas. This is something I didn't know about. They're also called tapas bars. There's ports on Spanish worlds, and Central America call them bocas or botanas. The popularity of the concept is also spread to other worlds. Strictly speaking, tapas is defined as a small appetizer or snack. So basically, you just go there for some light food and drinking and socialization. Nightclubs, why not? Not really night when you're out in space all the time, but you get the idea. So nightclubs. Casinos, of course. Many, many space games are driven somehow, some way involving the casino. Brothels, and then, of course, the Captain's Guild. And the Captain's Guild is something we're going to take a look at. I'm going to go back to the big, beautiful book, the main Clement sector book, and we're going to take a look at the Captain's Guild there in a future video. Religious facilities, and now we get into Starport careers, and I really liked this. There's some stuff you can really dial in. If you want to do a game where you have a large spaceport, a la Babylon 5 or DS9, here is your opportunity. Here are the careers you would need for it. I really liked the careers in here. I'm just going to take a quick look at them. You've got the corporate courier. You can be a messenger, a general mail, or a money courier. And all the stuff that would deal with that class. I thought that was a cool idea. Corporate fleet. Maybe you are one that's flying one of the corporate vessels. Somebody has to. Somebody's got to drive the bus for the bus line. You can be line crew, engineer, or gunnery. And again, here's your full career. So if you want to work up just a localized game in Clement Sector 3rd, this is how you would go about it. Customs official, there you go. You could be a customs official, an inspector, or a staff. I see a lot of Babylon 5 stuff. Dock workers. There's a couple of Babylon 5s where they're dealing with dock workers striking or causing problems. You have stevedore would be what you'd be as a dock worker. It's an old term for somebody who loads and unloads cargo from vessels. Guild inspector. Why not? Somebody's got to inspect it and make sure that all the various rules and laws are being upheld. And let's see. Get everything. Guild purser. You are basically person in charge of one of the captain's guild houses on a world. Again, I'll go into the captain's houses in a future video. I really think that's one of the cooler concepts in Clement Sector. I'm sure they have them in Earth Sector too. Port administration. A lot of neat careers. I like that these books offer different careers that you might not even think about on your own. I certainly would have thought of a few of these, like quality inspector. One of the people sent out by societies such as the Culinary Society for purpose of judging excellence of a restaurant or hotel. Search and rescue. That one writes itself. You can be part of the crew, an engineer, or a med tech. Search and rescue could lead to a lot of good games. You could just whip up a team that's nothing but the Chicago Fire of space and do a search and rescue that way. Like I said, this book, great ideas. And speaking of Chicago Fire, Starport Fire Department. You are a firefighter aboard a Starport. That's pretty cool. And Starport Security, Mr. Garibaldi. Why not? And now we get an example Starport, the Slarin, Maine Starport. It's included here as an example of a typical downport located in Clement Sector. And it gives you, its Slarin, Maine downport is in the northern hemisphere of Slarin in Cascadia 0307. And there is a layout of the port. And when we did Jump Point last November, the adventure that I wrote that Adam and I both ran our versions of, well, the players were in a starport during a coup attempt on the planet and had to cross the starport to get to their starships. A lot of fun was had by all, especially in Adam's game where he let them break into a weapons shop and walk out with one guy with powered armor, another guy with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. Now we go to corporations and organizations. And this is again where you get a lot of the flavor of Earth that you couldn't get in other games that are set further in the future. So you get Tudo, a small retail store founded in Brazil and brought out into space. You get homemade biscuits and gravy, special recipe. Big Al's Biscuits is one of the chain of restaurants found. I like that. The Culinary Society, organization founded in 2190 on Earth to provide details, information, and guidance in what should be considered a great restaurant and to praise culinary excellence. Kind of a James Beard Award type thing. Lady the Lamp Society, our lamp is always lit. They were formed by a group of nurses who felt that while the various doctor groups that were giving aid were great, they didn't quite go far enough to follow up care, and that's where the nurses would come in. Lucky's. Lucky's is a chain of convenience stores founded in the Southern Alliance in 2187 at the Warner Robins Downport in Georgia. So it's basically a 7-Eleven or whatever local convenience store you guys have. And now we have examples, locations. We have the Captain Guild Suite. That's just so cool. And then we have the Chrome Shop, the Lucky Horseshoe Casino, and you're getting deck plans for all of this. So this is all at your fingertips for whatever game you want to run. They're right there. And the games they play at the casino: Slide, which is a made-up game here, Baccarat, Poker, Blackjack and Poker. No reason you can't work those games into your actual game. I've done it, where the players have actually sat at the table and I've dealt out poker hands. And then the story is driven by how well they've actually done at the real poker that we've played. I've given chips and let them play with chips. And if they win, the story goes one way. If they lose, the story goes another. It can be a real fun way. Plus, the poker itself is a lot of fun. And then we get it looking at our casino. We get the first floor and the second floor. There we go. There we go. First floor, second floor. You leave it storage. And lots of storage can be driven there. You buy a storage locker, and it turns out the storage locker has something really interesting in it. Maybe an old artifact, maybe some weapons, maybe a person in cryo. Yeah, who knows? The Loyal Order of the Mystic Platypuses. Wouldn't that be platypi? Loyal Order of the Mystic Platypus Outreach Office. It's part of the Systems Outreach or an Assistance Program, or SOAP. It's part of the Loyal Order and attempts to provide help to those in need. So if you're a spacer down on your luck, go look for the Loyal Platypus. Second Reformation Church Chapel. There you go. Arms Make the Man Weapon Shop. I love the name of that. Arms Make the Man. You're not a man if you don't have our weapons. That's outstanding. Howard Central Trauma Unit. Oh, many spacers are familiar with trauma units. And then the Plasma Nightclub. It's a standard upscale nightclub. First, second, third floor. Security. The security people are very nice. Even when they're tossing you out on your ear, they're saying please, thank you, and calling you sir. And there's the layout for the casino, the nightclub, and then the security office and lockdown brig, because why not? You're going to need it. Suit and Tide Vac Suit Shop. I like the name of that one too. So your vac suit has a hole in it and you don't have the pieces to repair it, or you don't want to take the time and do it yourself. Here's an opportunity for you to just get it done for you. Coco's Sailing Away. It's a leisure bar located in Tupolev Station. It's dedicated to what owners believe to be the most iconic time in Earth's history, the age of smooth sail. So you can pretend you're on a sailing ship. Short stay capsule hotel. We touched on those earlier in the video. And then grav lifts. You want to get that cargo off fast. There's no union to contend with. You have to do it yourself. You can rent a grav lift or buy one. Definitely worth your time if you're a regular merchant to just have one of these on your ship. But again, check with the local authorities. You don't want to plug in that plug and deny a union electrician his job. And then we go into space station design, and you can build any size space station up to 1.5 million ton displacement out of here. I mean, this, and you can go even bigger than that if you want to. And then the configuration, they go into anneal cylinders here. This is such a good book. I like this book. The hull and the structure. The shipyards, if it's going to be armed or not, is something you have to think about. The engineering section, and then the various zones, the habitat zones, the freight zones, things like that. So administration, you have the command computer and the sensors. Then you got the commercial zone, which is the docking and cargo handling. Then the engineering. Then the residential zone and the green zone, because you don't want people going crazy. Go ahead and put some green on your station, a nice little park people can walk in and pretend that they're not in space, because it's proven people will go nuts if they don't have that. Maybe some sporting facilities and some genuine agriculture. Maybe you can plant some corn or something to keep yourself from going out of your mind. An industrial zone. You would need it. This would be where the smelters would be and such. Station internal access types. So zone distributors, which is public transportation, zone access, smaller version of distributor, and then local services or just walking. Public transport, station internal components would be education centers, green spaces, hostels, hotels, industrial facilities, fuel refinery. When you're designing, you have to leave room for all this stuff. Smelters. Again, I'm not the tech head. I'm not the guy to sit down and design a whole space station. That being said, this book makes me want to kind of try one, so I may be giving it a shot. If I do, I'll share it with you. I haven't decided yet. Armament. Is your space station going to be armed? Probably a good idea. Internal hangar space station for small craft. So for various runabouts or even small fighters. Space station crew and residents. Station security, environmental, flight operations, dockside freight handling, and engineers. Horticulture, medical services, station defense, residents. All these people need a place to sleep at night. And of course, military stations. And then coming over to the simple design process, if you don't want to go into all the crunchy bits, this is just a quicker and dirtier way of doing it. And then the detailed design process. And then we get a simple design example, Wallace's Pit Stop. It's XO 206 in Peel 0206 in the Boulder system. So just a nice little look there. And then the design data for the structure and some nice looks at it. This was a very, very well conceived, well executed book. And there we go. That's it. And we're out. I really liked this book. This is as much a book of ideas as it is a book of crunchy bits. And I like both. I'm more of an idea guy than a crunchy guy, but I can appreciate the crunchy. And I think they nailed it with this book. I recommend it highly. It's available through the Independence Games website as a PDF. It's also available on Drive-Thru RPG as a PDF or print on demand. This hardcover POD was $39.99. Again, I want to thank the good folks at Independence Games for sending this my way. I really enjoyed this read. I've liked their books tremendously so far. Whatever space game you're playing, these books can absolutely enhance whatever it is you're doing. And of course, if you're playing Independence Games Clement Sector 3rd Edition, these books are spot on for you. I'm really impressed by these, and I continue to be impressed as I read more and more. So thank you guys at Independence Games. Thank you guys for your time, for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And that's it for today. I'll see you next time on page 121.